don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, they don't know what they're missing. The rest of the world don't know what they're missing. They are, like going to bars and restaurants, and going dancing and getting inebriated, and we are here.
We're going dancing too.
Out.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 It's January 30th, 2021. We're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 16, entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures. We're on text 24. Text 24. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Akarya Vyavastito Gyatva Shastra Vidhana Uktam Karma Kartum Iha Arhasi Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Vyavastito Yatva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartumi Harhasi Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Vyavastito Yatva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartumi Harhasi Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Vyavastito Yatva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartum Iharhasi
Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te
Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te
Karya Vyavastito
Karya Vyavastito
Yadva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartum Iharasi
Karma Kartum Iharhasi
Tasmat Shastram Paramam Te
Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te
Karya Vyavastito
Karya Vyavastito
Not
Gyatva
That's it.
Yeah.
Sastra Vinhouse Tam
Yatva Shastra Vidanoktam
Karma Kartum Ihari Hase
Karma Kartum Iharhasi.
I shouldn't even try it.
You're choosing not to try.
If you want to laugh.
There's no force or pressure.
And there's no need.
Okay, yeah, let me get more familiar with it. I wish they kind of had the phonetics.
At the end of the book there is.
At the end of the book, there's a phonetic glossary.
Do you have the Bhagavad Gita at home?
Do what?
Do you have the Bhagavad Gita at your home?
I do. I have the orange one.
This one
The
is
small orange one.
Brian has a son.
That's the best one.
Yeah. I'll be glad to give you a copy.
Yeah.
before you leave today.
Okay, all right.
And just so you're aware, and that's why Prabhupada did this, at the end there's a Sanskrit pronunciation guide.
Hmm.
So one can even learn Sanskrit from Prabhupada's books. Tasmat,
Kasmat.
therefore,
Therefore.
Shastram,
Sastram.
scriptures,
Scriptures.
Pramanam,
Pranam.
evidence,
Evidence.
te,
Te.
your,
Your.
karya,
Karya.
duty,
Duty.
akarya,
Akarya.
forbidden activities,
Forbidden activities.
vyavastitao,
Vyavastitao.
in determining,
Determining.
yatva, knowing,
Knowing.
shastra,
Sastra.
of scripture,
Of scriptures.
vidan,
Vidan.
regulations,
Regulations.
uktam,
Uktam.
as declared,
As declared.
karma,
Karma.
work,
Walk.
kartum,
Cartoon.
to do,
To do.
iha arhasi,
Ihar Ahasi.
you should do it.
You should do it.
Translation. One should understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in the 15th chapter, all the rules and regulations of the Vedas are meant for knowing Krishna. If one understands Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita and becomes situated in Krishna consciousness, engaging himself in devotional service, he has reached the highest perfection of knowledge offered by the Vedic literature. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made this process very easy. He asked people simply to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and to engage in the devotional service of the Lord and eat the remnants of foodstuff offered to the deity. One who is directly engaged in all these devotional activities is to be understood as having studied all Vedic literature. He has come to the conclusion perfectly. Of course, for the ordinary persons who are not in Krishna consciousness or who are not engaged in devotional service, what is to be done and what is not to be done must be decided by the injunctions of the Vedas. One should act accordingly without argument. That is called following the principles of Shastra or scripture. Shastra is without the four principal defects that are visible in the conditioned soul: imperfect senses, the propensity for cheating, certainty of committing mistakes, and certainty of being illusioned. These four principal defects in conditioned life disqualify one from putting forth rules and regulations. Therefore, the rules and regulations as described in the Shastra, being above these defects, are accepted without alteration by all great saints, acharyas, and great souls. In India, there are many parties of spiritual understanding, generally classified as two: the impersonalist and the personalist. Both of them, however, lead their lives according to the principles of the Vedas. Without following the principles of the scriptures, one cannot elevate himself to the perfectional stage. One who actually, therefore, understands the purport of the Shastras is considered fortunate. In human society, aversion to the principles of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all fall downs. That is the greatest offense of human life. Therefore, Maya, the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always giving us trouble in the shape of the threefold miseries. This material energy is constituted of the three modes of material nature. One has to raise himself at least to the mode of goodness before the path to understanding the Supreme Lord can be opened. Without raising oneself to the standard of the mode of goodness, one remains in ignorance and passion, which are the cause of demoniac life. Those in the modes of passion and ignorance deride the scriptures, deride the holy man, and deride the proper understanding of the spiritual master, and they do not care for the regulations of the scriptures. In spite of hearing the glories of devotional service, they are not attracted, thus they manufacture their own way of elevation. These are some of the defects of human society which lead to the demoniac status of life. If, however, one is able to be guided by a proper and bona fide spiritual master who can lead one to the path of elevation, to the highest stage, then one's life becomes successful. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the divine and demoniac natures. Now, before speaking and discussing, I'm going to chant some other mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness. And if you can just listen. If you're interested to follow along, these other mantras are found on page 1 of Bhagavad Gita, right at the beginning of the introduction. Okay. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurannilidham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Upakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Trishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now I'm going to recite Srila Prabhupada's 2 pranam mantras, because all these mantras, they're to invoke the blessings and auspiciousness from Krishna and his pure representatives, so that whatever we speak and discuss, that
They're with us.
yeah, they're with us and we're representing them in a way that's pleasing to them. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Ti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Vyavastitao Gyatva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartuni Arhasi. One should understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. You can turn on the light if that'll help you. You're okay? All right. Thank you, Malini. Thanks. Okay, so you might join us online too. All right, Krishna. Yeah, okay. So this is talking about following rules and regulations. Earlier in the Gita, in the 2nd chapter, Krishna uses the term the regulated principles of freedom. Okay. So the regulation that can have that term can have an oppressive feel to it. But regulated principles of freedom can seem like a contradiction. But if we just take a simple example, there are so many simple examples, right? So just like if we want to drive to the Hippodrome in Gainesville, so I could think, well, because I'm a free person, I'm my own person. If I have the feeling, I'll drive on the left side. And for me today, red light will mean go very fast. because I'm free. Well, actually, that sort of freedom will constrain me in a hospital or a prison or with like $10,000 of debt or something. Right? So actually, the regular principles, well, it's the USA, so drive on the right side, red light means stop, and yellow light means slow down, and all those rules. No, so I'm very glad, I'm happy to follow them. I'm happy that others choose to follow them. Because following those regular, it frees me to achieve my goal of getting to the Hippodrome in Gainesville. It frees me to achieve my goal. So that's true for just like if we want to be free to enjoy good health, we follow some basic principles. We brush our teeth, right? We think so. It's like that's a regular principle, right? We have certain health principles we follow. Okay, so in anything, we follow some principles, and that frees us to really serve our highest good. So it's the same in spiritual life. So like the different rules, they're not meant to be oppressive or repressive, just the opposite. They're meant to free the soul to our highest good, to our highest good. And yeah, so we talked about that a little bit this morning. We talked about austerity, do what's natural, Well, yeah, so for the soul to really free itself to do what's natural for the soul, serve God with love and devotion steadily, it means that we follow some rules and regulations to bring our consciousness to that point. And so let's describe Neha Bikamu Nasho Ste Pachavaya Navijite Svapamapyasi Dharmasya Trayate Mahatobaya, that anything we do in this path of Bhakti Yoga, anything we do in Krishna consciousness, it's for our eternal, timeless benefit. So that's true. We chant Hare Krishna one time in our life. That's for our eternal benefit. Wonderful. And at the same time, if we want to make steady, progressive advancement in the path of realizing who we are, spirit, soul, and freeing ourselves from all the unwanted things that weigh us down, envy, jealousy, laziness, greed, lust, we really want to make advancement, then for most that requires some determination to follow regular principles of freedom. Krishna says in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatatastra dritavrata namasyantastra mam bhaktya nityayuktu pasate. So that term dritavrata means a determined vow. And if we really want to make this our last lifetime of being forced to take birth in a material body, it's like a determined vow. And then, okay, so then the Vedas, we could study the Vedas our whole life. And we even could study Bhagavad Gita on our own without the support of a pure devotee of Krishna. We wouldn't really know what to do. So that's why Prabhupada uses the term, the current acharya, our current link to Krishna's disciplic succession. So we know like which regulations to follow that'll really help us for meeting us where we're at. We talked about that this morning in class and discussion too. Krishna directly or through his pure representative, he meets us where we're at and gives us particular guidelines that support us, and like the guidelines that might be particularly supportive for 5,000 years ago, that might not be so. The principles are the same. The principles are eternal, timeless, inviolable, and the details of how to come closer and closer to realizing the eternal principles. We're not the body, we're eternal servants of God. The principles of karma, the details might be adjusted. Like in one part of the world, they chant one names of God, like that. So, right, so like Srila Prabhupada recommends, Srila Prabhupada as our current link to the Vaishnava disciplic succession. Srila Prabhupada recommends that it's nice to chant Hare Krishna mantra whenever we feel. That's That's auspicious. And if we want to really make solid advancement, to make some dvida vrataha, to make some vow that for at least this year or for my life, I will chant this minimum number of rounds, whatever it is, 1, 2. Now, Prabhupada recommends for those who are serious about the process, he recommends at least 16 per day. The principle, though, it's ascribed about the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananatipi Kalavasani Krita Nidraha Ravihara Kadi Vijita Chatyanta Dina Chaya Radha Krishna Gunasmita Madhurimanandena Samohita Bande Upasanatana Raghuyuga Sri Jiva Gopalaka Bande Upasanatana Raghuyuga Sri Jiva Gopalaka. That's a song that describes the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They're pictured there. You see my altar, the altar at Malini's house, the 6 devotees there on the top shelf. Yeah, that's Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Srila Jiva Goswami. So they're great practitioners and teachers of Krishna consciousness from about 500 years ago. And it's described that they would practice sadhana. Sadhana means regulated bhakti according to a numerical vow, offering obeisances, chanting japa, and they would make a numerical vow. And so that's recommended, that if we want to advance in this path each day, it's more recommended, even if I chant, I'll recommend I'll chant at least 1 round per day for the rest of my life. Come on. That's better than today I feel like chanting 40 rounds and chant, and then for 6 months I don't chant at all, and then today I feel like, all chanting of the names of God is wonderful, but to steadily make progress in our stages of consciousness, commit to something, follow it like lines in a rock, and then maybe next month or next year then commit higher. It's recommended. And then other basic principles that help us get to the hippodrome, so to speak. Just let's say in the area of eating, everyone eats, okay? So if we're looking, so to practice the nuances of this bhakti yoga requires a peaceful environment inside, a peaceful internal environment. So we can understand, if we're consuming the results of gross violence, animals were screaming in agony, that if we're consuming, hey Malini, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. If we're consuming the results of gross violence, then just because we tell ourselves that the bumps on my tongue like the taste of blood and flesh, then that's just not going to help. It's terrible karma, and it's not going to help produce that internal environment that's peaceful enough to get the subtle principles of spiritual life. So it's a regular principle, vegetarian diet, and that's goodness. And then transcendental vegetarian diet, that's prasadam, where we commit to only consuming prasadam, Krishna prasadam. Other regulative principles, because the idea of material life is that I'm already living in layers of illusion, right? I think I'm this body, right? I mistake the self for the body, and I think this is my house, this is my car, this is my territory, whatever, right? Rather than everything's God's energy. We have so much illusion. Yeah. So then we can say, oh, okay, well, to advance spiritually and come out of the illusion, I'll smoke a joint. Okay. So it's not recommended, because intoxication. And that's why Prabhupada recommends, again, for someone who wants to really advance in this path.
Doesn't work. Cause you want doesn't work.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So he recommends, like, yeah, not even caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, no intoxication. No intoxication. And even as you've been in some of our seminars, we have ground rules, like vegetarian, and for the 7 days of the seminar, yeah, no intoxication, including cigarettes, coffee, caffeinated coffee, alcohol. Because, you know, the seminars, they're all about focus in, no escape hatches, focus in on self-realization. So this is the ultimate seminar. And so that's why Prabhupada said, you know, we can do whatever we want. It's so we discussed this morning, Tapo Divyam Puchaki in Sattva. And that you know, all humans are doing austerity. But like, okay, so we can do austerity so our business is successful, or so that I can make enough money to get that house.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? All humans are doing austerity.
Okay, yeah. So if we look, yeah, we had that discussion.
Oh, he's laughing.
Is he laughing?
Yes, I asked that question this morning.
Everyone's foregoing some immediate gratification of the senses to achieve some longer term goal. Okay. Whether if someone wants to develop a business, or someone wants to, you know, be a good employee for a company, it means, well, today I just feel, this week I'll just sleep till 10 a.m. No, it means I'm there at 8. I punch the clock at 8. Okay, and then because we trust, yeah, then I'll get good reviews, and I'll get a raise, and it'll bring happiness, and I'll feel like a more successful person. Someone wants to get really good at playing a musical instrument or playing tennis or golf. It means like, yeah, I'm just going to party all night. No, it means like, oh, I'm going to practice 8 hours a day because I want to come to tournament level. So everyone's doing austerity. So the question is, what's the goal of our austerity? And the recommendation, Bhagavad Gita, the recommendation of Bhagavatam, is let's do our austerity for that benefit that's not just long term, that benefit that is timeless and enduring, that benefit that will never be destroyed by time. So that's Bhakti Yoga.
Would the one in front of the zeros play into that, or not necessarily, as far as the analogy? Like if you're doing these austerities, but you really, you know, have Krishna in this as your structure, or you're in the middle, then it's an austerity that's a spiritual austerity.
I like that analogy. It's completely appropriate.
Yeah.
The one that gives value to the string of zeros. Because otherwise we could do so much austerity.
Right.
But if self-realization and service to Krishna is not in the center, then any business we build, or degrees we get, or houses we build, it's all going to be, it's gone. First of all, even while it's there, we all know it feels empty anyway, if God's not in the center. And then it's all going to be crushed in a year, 100 years. What's going to be of it in 1,000 years? All gone. But whatever progress we make in this bhakti yoga path, that's for eternal value. And so Srila Prabhupada, representing Krishna as a pure devotee of Bhagavad Gita, he's giving us, here's guidelines if you want to advance in this path. Otherwise, we say, oh, I'll follow this, I'll follow that. And we can we're allowed to, we can make experiments this way, that way. And we might find 10 years pass, 30 years pass, and we really haven't made much progress. And okay, so yeah, so this is our it's our opportunity. You know, we get to look at how dedicated am I to spiritual life. It's just like, yeah, it's like a compartment of life. yeah, maybe 15 minutes a day, or do I really want to make this I really want to be determined that this isn't just a compartment of life, but with self-realization, spiritual life, it pervades and support all that I do, all that I touch, all that I feel. And so Prabhupada in this purport, he talks about Maya, the material energy. So intrinsically, so we are spirit souls and we're stronger intrinsically than the material energy. As an analogy, it's like, let's say there's a big ship on the ocean. The big ship represents us, very powerful. But a little tugboat, which represents the material energy is like inanimate. It's less powerful than the soul. A little tugboat can drive the ship all around the ocean if the ship's engines are off. So engines off means we're not alive in a devotional attitude towards God. Okay? Or as another analogy, so material energy, let's compare it to like fierce hurricane winds. Okay. And so like if we have like, this Krishna consciousness here and there, then we're susceptible. If we don't have this strong valve determination, we're susceptible that the hurricanes of material energy will let's say like like if like a little seedling can be just like whatever, a 20-mile-per-hour wind can destroy it, or a little animal. So material energy is filled with all sorts of destructive critters, and lions and tigers and gale force winds and tornadoes. And so the opportunity, like if we follow what's in this verse, to rigorously with heart and soul commit to guidelines that'll support us, then we feel ourselves growing to be like a redwood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a redwood, even if you have an 80-mile-per-hour wind, or a little rabbit, or even if you have a mountain lion, can't touch a redwood. Right? It's strong.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our choice. How strong we want to be in spiritual life. Jim.
I've heard Prabhupada say, like devotees need to take Maya seriously, or maybe he said they don't take Maya seriously. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah, I can. I'm glad you mentioned it. So just so Melanie hears.
I mean, it's like, it's a little scary to hear that, but I don't know. I mean, I can understand too, because as far as just being tricked, I don't know, and being duped by Maya, and it's just thinking it's got that. It does have quite a, I guess it does. I guess it does have a manipulative power in a sense.
Big time.
Yeah.
Prabhupada said,
but you don't want to be living in fear. I don't know.
No, there is spiritual fear, and we want to be living in it.
Okay.
Now, there's just like there's material anger that's toxic, and there's spiritual anger.
She wrote something.
What's that?
She wrote something.
And I hear Jim well, even if you do not turn the computer. Thanks for that, Melanie. Thank you. And thank you, Jim, for speaking loud enough. So all emotions have their material experience, and they have their spiritual counterhole. So Prabhupada said his greatest anxiety is that his followers are not scared enough of Maya.
Yeah, that's what I remember hearing. Yeah.
Right. So,
can you say that again?
Okay, Prabhupada said that his greatest anxiety is that his followers are not scared enough of Maya. They're not fearful enough of the tricky, deceptive, illusory energy. And we like over, no, I'm okay, I got it. We read Gita once this week. But Maya is very tricky, and it's described. So this is a verse about Maya. Srishti stiti pralaya sadhana shakti reka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vibharti durga Ichanupamapi yasya chacheshtaste sa govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. That describes Maya. Another name for her is Kali or Durga. Durga means fortress. So ultimately, she's like the whole material energy is like a prison house. And she's here to keep us in the prison house. But she's doing just like the warden of a prison house is not like this mean, nasty person. He's serving the government, he's serving society, he's serving with prisoners. That's his job, or her job in this case. And so she's serving for Govinda Mari Purusham, Tamaham Bhajami. She's serving for the pleasure of Krishna, Govinda. And when a prisoner in the prison house of Maya Durga is fully rehabilitated and ready to serve Krishna with love and devotion, she's very happy. Then she offers a flower garland to that spirit soul who's become a pure devotee. But in the meantime, she's reciprocating with our desires to forget Krishna and to forget who we are. So there's healthy spiritual fear. Not like we're hiding under the covers because we're scared, but let that spiritual fear move me to be rigorous, to be rigorous, to regularly read Prabhupada's books, to chant at least my minimum vow per day of Hare Krishna, to be careful about sound vibrations or different temptations. We all know what we're tempted by. We all know how Maya gets us.
TV shows, music. Yeah. Be aware of even that. Yeah.
Exactly. I know myself. Like I could hear particular music or something from my teenage years like that. And then just like, what happened to that 8 hours? I didn't plan to get in Maya, but to not plan to fall into Maya is not enough. We need to plan not to fall into Maya. Like we need to make plans. Like if we want to really grow ourselves into a steady redwood, we need to make plans and know so here's my temptation. And so let that fear move me to take deeper shelter in the processes of bhakti yoga.
Would urgency play a part or not necessarily?
I like that word.
Yeah.
I like that word very much, urgency. Because it's not like a material anxiety, but urgency means I appreciate the value of each moment. And I do not want to waste. A devotee is described as urgent. Avyarta kalatvam means a devotee does not want to waste one moment outside of Krishna consciousness. So it's urgency. The urgency, it's not like a material anxiety. I know when I'm living with urgency, then I'm joyful and I'm fully present. And when I'm kind of complacent and not living with urgency, then I'm in anxiety. Because then I know, I just wasted so much time. I need to catch up. What about those emails? So I'm living with urgency, purposeful, focused, present. Then I feel like I don't simultaneously, I have all the time in the world and not a moment to lose.
Interesting.
I experienced that integration like in times like this when we're discussing Bhagavad Gita. That this is what life is for. I have all the time in the world for this and not a moment to lose and kind of nonsense distracting Maya stuff.
Gotcha. My thing is like, I guess I have a fear of needing to, be disciplined, in the moment, and I don't know, just so stuff doesn't come up in the future. I guess that's kind of like a fear I have. I don't like if I'm slacking off, I'm slacking off, it's gonna come back to bite me, in a couple of months or something, I don't know.
If I'm slacking off, it bites me by the next morning.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a coexistence of opposites too, with all the time in the world, but urgent and rhythm.
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have all the time in the world for what really matters.
Mm.
Yeah. Yes. So like, wait. So let's not major in minor stuff.
Mm. Right.
I appreciate the discussion. Any other questions or comments about this verse, our discussion? Anything related to the practice or philosophy of Krishna consciousness?
I've got a question about the regulative, some of the food stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why, so vegetarian, don't eat eggs though, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm curious about that, right? I mean, just because it comes from the animal, I mean, I can make my own speculations.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? It comes from the chicken, and it's unnatural to take the chicken's eggs.
Yeah, it is unnatural. Thanks for that question about eggs. One thing, Prabhupada, I think he sort of addresses it there, that he says one has to raise himself at least to the modes of goodness before the path to understanding the Supreme Lord can be opened. So, yeah, so like to eat an egg doesn't require the sort of brutal killing, like to eat cow meat or chicken meat or pig meat. So that's true. So I would say there's less brutality involved. Still, and I'm no expert in this whole thing, but essentially an egg is the menstrual discharge of a chicken, I think.
Unfertilized egg.
Okay, so it's not like the cleanest thing.
Yeah.
That's it. So like it's not a mode of goodness.
Yeah.
It won't be cleansing, uplifting for the consciousness.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second one was like, okay, so yeah, I get that mode of goodness. So mode of goodness, obviously, cow's milk is considered like so goodness and sacred, and right, Krishna's stealing the cow's milk and the butter.
Yes.
But I've experienced sometimes like with cow's milk, like, I mean, I get it, it's so sacred, but it's almost like, I don't know, I have some conflicting feelings because it's like,
Taking it from the babies.
well, I think sometimes it depends on who you're getting it from, right? Because if some places they have a baby and they do take the baby away, but if they're actually letting the baby feed the cow until it gets bigger, and then someone's milking the cow, it'll just keep on producing milk because they're this amazing sacred being that just produce milk. So I didn't really form a question, but so I can like see why it's good, but it's also there's some practice in there that feels.
Yeah. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for that. Just kind of sharing your thoughts around it and you're wondering. So certainly that's a consideration, like where does the food come from? And in the modern age, there's so much, so much, bad karma in the whole industry of so many things, including dairy. So that's a consideration. So I'll say, at least ideally, there's a natural, healthy, symbiotic relationship between the cow and humans.
Right, and as you're sharing, it makes me think like, how far back it goes, and that kind of relationship is very different with the cows.
Yeah, I had an experience. This was the years 1992 to 1996. And I was living in a place between Alachua and Gainesville, and it had a cow. And when the owner wasn't there, sometimes he would be gone for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was milking a cow. Her name was Utmavati. And I would milk her morning and evening, and her calf was no longer drinking her milk. And it was very nice because we had small children at the time, and so yeah, there's nothing that could be bought in the store that could compare to that. So I would milk, and then like the freshest milk possible, and it could see that see for Mavati or the cow, that they naturally produce more than their calves need. They naturally produce, and if the humans don't take it, then they feel pain in their milk bags. So like it's a natural symbiotic. She was like, okay, I'm ready to be milked. I'm ready to be milked. She was very relieved. When she was milked. So it's very natural and healthy. And okay, and then if someone chooses not to consume dairy from the big corporate industries that treat animals terribly, that's understandable. And then there's also the principle that, so even if dairy comes from a place where cows are not treated lovingly, and then a devotee offers the dairy product to Krishna with love and devotion, and then Krishna accepts the offering, then the cow from which that milk came actually gets spiritual benefit. So that's it.
Transformed.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from that cow, right? I'm just reading about that without money or something.
Yeah.
It's good karma goes back to that cow that originally gave it.
Correct.
That's an interesting way to think about. I like that way of thinking about it. Sometimes I can focus on like there's that negative thing. So if I take it and do something good, like I feel that's negative, but it's actually can be transforming for both.
Precisely.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like a magician.
It's like a magician. Yeah. It's devotees are magicians. Yeah, because devotees, it's devotional service. It's really not about rejecting the material energy. It's about transforming the material energy into spiritual energy. And it's not a cheap thing, but there's a science of how to do it. And we just discussed that science in regards to dairy products. Same with anything. Oh, money is material. It's true. So much of the violent, vicious Maya is around money. Oh, so we reject money. No, let's learn how to use money in devotional service in Bhakti Yoga. Then money becomes Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune, the supreme demigoddess. Same with whatever, this house or the vehicles we drive. Are they material or spiritual? It depends. What's the consciousness behind their usage?
I don't remember where I read it because I've been going to classes, but I think I read this on my own somewhere. I have no idea where, but it was talking about even if you give money, or maybe someone, it was your article. Of course, that's what it was. It was your response to Scott, perhaps.
Okay.
So it's your own
That's
words.
it.
But I read it and I was like,
sure.
It was really good. And how if you give money to someone else and what they do with it can affect you.
We're implicated.
It's like, really. It's
What,
like, we're all connected, right? That whole element where I'm more familiar, like we're all connected, but like that way we're connected, right? Like if he wrote his response to someone who asked a question about coaching, and his personal question had to do with money and like receiving money, and he was to give money to someone else, but like, so say I had abundance and I give it to someone else.
just give it to them?
Yeah, for whatever reason, just generally talking, and that person does something bad with it, that can affect me.
Yep, that's your bad karma.
Okay, but not if it's for a service that you gave, not if it's a business transaction.
Well, if it's a service and it's for a person or someone that I think that needs money.
No, I mean like if you coach somebody and you charge them $60 for that hour.
Yeah,
Maybe something bad.
the article was specifically talking about charity. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Charity.
Okay, gotcha.
So we can think, I wouldn't be a good person. Let's say, let's give to the homeless person. Well, that could be a good thing.
Right.
Let's say the homeless person, and I'm not discouraging giving money to homeless people, but we're getting the principle here. So the homeless person uses the money to buy crack cocaine, and he sells it to teenagers at the high school, who then become addicted to crack cocaine, and when they get a little older, they murder people to steal money to support their habit. So the one who gives charity and is feeling very good about himself is implicated karmically in those murders.
Wow.
It's a true fact.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the positive side of it, if we give charity in a way that's used to really support people's eternal benefit, and then we get that eternal benefit. So that's why we talk about conscious living. It's really important. Yeah, how just like we talked this morning about really this body's rented. It's not my body or my money, but the money that God has given to me, to be conscious how to use it, the money, the resources, the body, the mind, the time. And this is the science of how to utilize all the resources in the service of their actual owner. And that's our eternal benefit.
So do you never, like, if you see someone on the corner near the downtown, do you ever give anyone like $1 or a couple bucks? Or, I mean, sometimes I try to use my intuition.
Oh, yes.
But
Malini?
Yes. I know that in my car, Jim, because I do want to serve the homeless, but not in a way that's degrading, not in a way that if I give them money, really, I don't know what people are going to do with this money. Maybe they are going to buy meat. Maybe they are going to drink alcohol. Maybe they are going to do things that are not karmically supportive of them necessarily. And I do like to give. And personally, I keep like, energy bar or vitamin C lollipop. And when I now in Gainesville and Alachua, there's more and more people who beg at intersections. And I'm just in a habit, like when I pass by the intersection, I give them and they are ready and they receive whatever I give. So, like if they are begging because they need something, maybe some of them not because it's just a way of living and a way of making money to get their crack, but some of them maybe it's for eating, and I make sure I give them very nutritious prashadam. And because it's prashadam, it's also serving them for their soul. So it's elevating them instead of degrading them. If I was giving them money, they may degrade themselves, but by giving them energy bar or something that's good for their body, it's also good for their soul because it's offered to the Lord first.
gotcha. Yeah. I think I should, stop giving money. I don't give much, but.
Well, and if you like giving, the best
$1 here, $1 there, but still.
Prashadam, like get a box of crackers or something that you will spend the same amount of money and you can offer it to the Lord. And then every time you see an homeless in the street, you give them something to eat. And something that's not simply food, but that's also elevating them spiritually. Lakshmi Priya, who stayed at Prabhupada House.
Oh, yeah.
At one point before the pandemic, she was cooking every Monday, and she was cooking a bunch of food, and she will go all around Gainesville distributing it to the homeless.
Wow, that is amazing.
And she will offer it to Krishna. So she knew that when she was giving, she was not simply feeding the cage or, like giving to the cage or giving to the vehicle. It was a way deeper than that. She was giving them an opportunity for Krishna consciousness.
Beautiful. Beautiful it is. Thank you, Malini.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you.
I do distribute lollipops.
They're good lollipops.
I know those organic ones. Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest.
Yeah, organic and vitamin C.
I'm going to suggest in the next part of our program, we chant together in unison one round of japa, and then we go to prasadam dinner.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you don't have beads, I got plenty of beads here.
Yeah,
Can I grab this
I
one?
did not bring my beads.
This one's okay?
Yeah, that works fine. Yeah. All right. So let's do our best to chant in unison. One round, that's 108 mantras. And I think both of you are familiar with the process. For chanting japa, it's generally recommended to use the right hand, thumb, and middle finger, and to start with the bead next to the large bead. And again, this whole bhakti yoga, just like we talked about dairy products or money, or it's not a process of elimination, it's a process of transformation.
Move the camera.
What's
I
that?
just don't feel like it needs to be. Thank you. Probably won't share that, I'm sure. Kind of done.
Okay. I'm gonna close the recap.
Yeah.